Wanted to spend today looking at how we find the coordinates of the points on the unit circle. So the unit circle, once again, is a circle with a radius of unit 1. And the coordinates of the points at these specific angles are very important to us because they provide for us exact values for those coordinates. And those coordinates in turn then lead to exact values for the trig ratios, the 6 trig functions of these angles. So we're going to be using some information that you learned back in geometry to help us find these coordinates. So you may recall that in geometry you studied some special right triangles. One of those special right triangles is a 30, 60, 90 right triangle, and if you've taken the SAT, it's one of the things that they actually give you in the math section of the SAT. So it's kind of important. And the ratio of the sides of the 30, 60, 90 triangle are that they are 1 to 2 to the square root of 3, or a to a times the square root of 3. So if we can find the value for a, we can find the length of every side of this triangle. And we do in fact know one of the sides of this green triangle that I have drawn for you on the unit circle, and that's the hypotenuse, and that length is 1 because it is a radius of 1 unit. So in turn then we see that 1 is related to the 2a in our 30, 60, 90 special triangle. So we can say that 2a is equal to 1 and solve for a, so a is 1/2. So once we know that, we know the shorter leg of this triangle. And we also know the longer leg because it is a times the square root of 3. So it's the square root of 3 over 2. And those two sides, the legs of that right triangle, are actually the coordinates of this point, the x and y coordinate. Now, the really great thing is that triangle is the exact same triangle as the 60 degree, the one I have in red for you. But the shorter leg in this case is actually our x coordinate, and the longer leg is actually our y coordinate. So the coordinates here are flipped from x and y are switched. And we have 1/2 times the square root of 3 over 2. Now, when you're going to memorize a unit circle, which if you're in pre-calculus and you're headed to AP Calculus, you need to know the unit circle for sure. And it seems a little daunting for some people, I think, to memorize so much. And I'm not a good memorizer myself, so I have to always come up with tricks that will help me remember things. So one of the things is I know that those two numbers, the 1/2, the square root of 3 over 2, are the coordinates of my 30, 60 angles. And so then I just have to remember which one comes first. And if you just think about it logically, obviously when you're plotting this point, you're going further for the x coordinate than you are for the y coordinate. I mean, you can just look at it and see that it's a longer distance. So your larger number is going to come first, and because the square root of 3 is larger than 1, then the square root of 3 over 2 is going to be larger than 1/2. So that has to be the 30 degree angle, and then they would be flip-flop for the 60. But the beauty of this goes even further because it doesn't just apply to those two angles. This is the same and connected using the same triangle for all of the angles that are 30 degrees away from the x-axis. So those that I've highlighted in green are going to have the same numeric value. We just have to think about the charge on the number. Is it going to be positive or negative? And that is based on the quadrant that it's in. So this 150 degree angle is in the second quadrant. So the x coordinate is going to be negative. So it's negative square root of 3 over 2. And the y coordinate is going to be positive, 1/2. At the 210, this is in the third quadrant, and we know they're both going to be negative here. And then at the 300, it's in the fourth quadrant, so the x-coordinate is positive and the y-coordinate is negative. From there, we can make the same jump to other angles with regards to the 60-degree angle. So all of the angles that are 60 degrees from the x-axis, so that's this angle and this one, and this one. These are all going to have the same numeric value. We just have to look at the sign based on the quadrant that it's in. So in this case, once again, in the second quadrant, the x-coordinate's negative and the y-coordinate is positive. And then we have negative, negative, and then positive, negative. So when you're going to think about what is happening with the unit circle, you're going to quickly realize that all you really need to memorize is that first quadrant. And then you can think about how it relates to those angles that have the same reference angle as the ones in the first quadrant. So next, I want us to look at this 45-degree angle. And this also comes from one of our special right triangles from geometry, and it was the 45, 45, 90. So we have a 45, 45, 90. And these are going to be in the ratio of a to a to a square roots of 2. So once again, we have this situation where the hypotenuse, which is 1, is related to the a square roots of 2, and we can find the value for a. So we have a square roots of 2 is equal to 1. So a is equal to 1 over the square root of 2. And then we want to rationalize that denominator by multiplying the top and the bottom by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. So a is equal to the square root of 2 over 2. And that's going to be the x and the y coordinate. And if you think about it, that kind of makes sense, because at that 45-degree angle, you are actually equidistant from the x and the y axis. So it makes sense that those are going to be related and have the same values. So now we can look at all of those that are 45 degrees from the x-axis. And once again, those are going to have those same values, but the signs are going to be according to what quadrant they are in. So we're going to have negative square root of 2 over 2, and then square root of 2 over 2, and then they're both negative in the third quadrant. And then it's positive, negative in the fourth quadrant. Now, the last thing that we need to do is figure out the angles that are actually on the x and y axis. And those angles are going to be pretty easy because we know the radius is 1. So this coordinate at 0 degrees must be 1, 0. And at 90, our x-coordinate is 0 and our y-coordinate is 1. At 180, we're going negative 1 on the x and 0 on the y. And then on 270, we're going 0, negative 1. So we have found all of the values, the coordinates for the coordinates on the unit circle. Now, just to go ahead and give you a glimpse into how this works with the trig, because remember in your SOHCAHTOA that the sine is opposite over hypotenuse and cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, you can even look at this very first triangle that we did, this one, and think about the fact that for that 30-degree angle, the opposite is the square root of 3 over 2, and the adjacent is a 1/2 and the hypotenuse is 1. So the cosine of 30 degrees is going to be equal to the square root of 3/2, that x coordinate. And the sine of 30 degrees is going to be equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse, excuse me, the opposite over the hypotenuse, which is going to be 1/2 over 1. So it's that y coordinate. So in general, you have your x and your y coordinates. The x coordinate is the cosine and the y coordinate is the sine. And if you need an easy way to remember that, x comes before y alphabetically and c comes before s. So wasn't it nice of the mathematicians to put them in alphabetical order for us? So once again, I just want to remind you that there's really only one set of coordinates you need to memorize, and that's what's in the first quadrant. And I've given you some strategies to help you remember the order because they're really just 3 numbers. We have the square root of 3/2, 1/2, and the square root of 2/2. The square root of 2/2s are always going to go in the middle, and then you can look for the longer sides if you're not great at memorizing. And then remember, they're going to connect to those angles that are in the same position in the other coordinates. Thank you for viewing my video. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel so that you'll be notified when I post additional videos. You can also leave a comment if you would like to request a video from me. I'll be happy to take those requests and make videos on topics that you're finding challenging. Thanks.